Welcome to JMT's Garage. Today I'm going to show you basically how to paint with an HVLP gun and get some pretty good results. I've already done the painting that I want to do today, but if you're satisfied with less than professional results, but something that looks like this corner armor, then you should be satisfied with the procedure that I'm going to share with you today. I'll break this up into three parts: materials, prep, and paint. And that way you'll have a good idea, and hopefully a pretty thorough idea, of what you need to do and whether this is something you want to try to tackle on your own. It'll certainly save you a significant amount of money, but it is quite a bit of work. And I'll also post up an Excel document with all sorts of explanations for each step along the way. So let's get started. First thing is all your materials, which I've laid out here. We've got your prep materials and your paint materials. The prep materials basically consist of cleaning and sanding, and then your paint materials, of course, the gun and paints and how to use all that. So the first thing you want to do in prep is you want to take the substrate that you're working on. Today I was doing some half doors I picked up. And what you want to do when you get them in the condition that you're happy with is you want to take some distilled water and distilled white vinegar and make a 1-to-1 solution. Then you can use a cloth such as this one to wipe down the aluminum or the steel. It works for both. Now after that, you want to start with your first grit of sandpaper, which is going to be 120, and you want to go over the whole surface, and you want to make sure that it's all even and looks the same. I like to use an orbital sander, so that's the easiest way to get consistency across the substrate. After you finish the 120, you want to rinse it off again with your towel in 1-to-1 solution. Then you want to go to 240. And then after you finish that and it's consistent throughout, you want to go back and rinse it off again with the 1-to-1. And then you go to the 320 and do the same rinse, and finally the 400. At the 400, you don't need to do anything else to the substrate. Now, if you're doing aluminum, if you're painting aluminum, you need to paint it hopefully within 15 to 20 minutes. That way it won't have any corrosion. It flash corrosions really quick. Some other things that you're going to need here at prep, of course, are your drop cloth and, of course, gloves for when you start to paint and things like that. Once you get the self-etch prime on, you don't have to worry about aluminum anymore. Same thing for steel. Once it's on, it's good. You can let it set. You might want to read the specs for the 1K self-etch primer filler. I use Spray Max, and all that information's on the internet. Now, when it comes to paint day, of course, I've got an HVLP gun. That's what you see here. I got this one at Harbor Freight, about 50 bucks. I use the bigger gun, not the smaller gun. And I've got a little regulator and a water condenser here, so no water comes through my airline and goes out with the paint onto the surface. Of course, this is where you're going to put your paint. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to watch a video on how to set up these HVLP guns, because they have 3 dials, and you've got to get your dials set up correctly for your compressor. On that note, you're going to need a compressor, typically 5 horsepower, and pretty good capacity. And mine's probably just barely reaching the required minimum. But once you've got these pieces on the gun and you've learned to set up the gun and you've done practices with water so you can get the proper spray pattern, then you want to take some, forgot to pull this out, you want to take some lacquer thinner and run it through the gun and practice your pattern some more. Once you're satisfied and it's clean now, there's no water left because you've run the lacquer thinner through it, then you can either apply your base coat, your color, or mine's a polyester, so it doesn't need an activator. But if you do have a paint that has an activator, this is where you'll want to make sure you have a paint cup. And the paint cup has, for my particular paint that I'm going to use, 4:1. So you would look at these columns, and the way you do this is you gauge about how much paint you would like to use for the project. So if you don't have a big project, you might, use 1, middle project 2, a bigger project 3. And here's what you do. Let's say you have a pretty big project. You're going to take in this case, it's my clear, but if it's your base coat, same thing. Fill it up to the first 3 in the 4:1 column. Then you're going to take your activator, which is usually obviously a smaller can, and you're going to fill it up to the second 3. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take one of these filters. You're going to put it inside your cup. As you fill it up, run the paint through it to make sure the paint is clean. Then you're going to spray your base coat. And when you spray, you're going to want to start off of the material, the substrate, and move across onto it and keep an even pace and go off the end. Then come back and overlap your spray and go off again and then back until you have completed. It should look even as you do it. It should look even. This one's already had clear, so it looks pretty. But the important thing with the color level or color is that you get the color and make sure there's complete coverage. You don't have to worry a lot about shine at this stage because that'll come with your clear. After you've applied your base coat, following the flash times for your particular base coat, mine's, 5 to 8 minutes. I think it's 8 minutes. Then what you want to do is move to your clear after the sufficient time has been allowed for the last coat. For mine, it's minimum 15 to 20 minutes and maximum of 24 hours. Then I can apply the clear. At this point, you do the same thing. Hopefully you have another painter's cup or you've cleaned that one out, and you can gauge how much you want to use and follow the 4:1 or whatever the specific ratios are for your clear coat. You put it through a filter again into your gun to make sure it's clean, and you get to work. Now, don't put it on too heavy, but you do want to have good coverage, and you want to be able to see not little specks, but it wants to be like a solid piece of paint or clear across the surface. And if you do that, you'll have good results. After that, I usually do 2 coats, let's say a base coat, and then maybe 2 coats of clear. If you have some left, you can always do 3. Are you going to have some kind of orange peel? Probably. Most people who paint do have orange peel. It's most easily resolved in the first 24 hours with sanding up to about 3,200 grit. For my purposes, I usually don't go into all that, but you can really do it anytime. It's just easier to do in the first 24 hours. So that's a short tutorial on how to use an HVLP gun and hopefully get some pretty good results. One thing I didn't say I need to definitely say is that you need to wear a mask. This stuff is toxic. The moment you open the paint, you'll agree that this is not the kind of stuff that you want to be breathing in. So do your best. I wear a couple of masks just to keep as much of it away from me as possible. And of course, you'll notice all the drop cloths around here to try to keep the paint off of other things. Earlier, I had it covering the cabinets, so those were safe. And then, of course, drop cloth. Those are everywhere too. So hopefully that's a little bit of help, and I'll post an Excel document that will also hopefully help you. When you get done with your gun, you want to clean it well. Most of the videos will talk about that too, but you'll use your lacquer thinner for that, and probably your little cups. Take the gun apart, put all the pieces in there, clean everything out, all the threads, everything. Get the pin out, the needle out, and clean it up. You'll understand as you get into these things, it'll all make sense. So here's another final point. If you clear, and in the process of the clear, you had to mask something off like I did here, I wanted to see these Genrite welds, so I put my tape along the line that permitted me to be able to see them in silver. if you do that with painter's tape, only use painter's tape, but the time to take that tape off is immediately after you painted it. Do not wait for the clear to harden, because it will harden across from the paint onto your tape. And then when you pull it, it will pull away your beautiful paint job. And we don't want that. So pull it off immediately. Be very careful not to allow what you're pulling away to actually touch the paint and mess up your paint job. But that is the time to remove any masking that you have done. All right, well, I hope this has been a little bit of help, and I hope to see you out on Wrangler TJ Forum. Have a good one.